September 30th, a diverse turnout of fans came together to participate in The Truth's Been Heard, the biggest anti-racism concert to hit Halifax, put on by the East Coast Against Racism Association. The lineup included acts like the Big City Blues Band, rappers Roughneck and Hot Butter, and the straight-up punk rock of Society's Casualties and the Chitz. I spoke to Chitz members Derek and Richard about the presence of racism in town, the politics of speaking out, and the aftermath of the weekend show.
I feel the show was successful. There weren't as many people there as I would have liked to see, but they did have the last-minute change of venue, and I imagine that probably threw a lot of people off. But all in all, I was pleased.
I think one thing that's important too, when you're doing anti-racism gigs like this, is to reach out to teenagers, which is mostly what this show accomplished. Because like when you're in your teenage years, that's when you're the most easy to influence, and racist leaders know that, of course, and they try to capitalize on this. They try to go in schools and recruit young people. If you look at racism, sexism, and homophobia, I have to say that I probably would see more examples of sexism on a day-to-day basis than like racism itself, because part of the reason for that is that racism is
more taboo.
Yes,
sexism is it's more socially acceptable.
Yeah,
and that's really got to change.
And homophobia is virtually an open field. I mean, I've seen people who who are openly homophobic and have absolutely no shame about it. My only concern with organizations that focus exclusively on fighting racism is that by doing this, we might be somewhat inadvertently giving out the message that all the other kinds of discrimination that I mentioned are less of a problem, or less urgent. And I don't believe that to be so. Discrimination is discrimination, and I mean, no matter what it's based on, it's just equally wrong. It's just that some things are taken less seriously by mainstream society. I just cannot help but wonder how many people would actually take an anti-sexism gig seriously, or an anti-homophobia gig seriously.
You'd be accused of being politically correct.
It's an important first step. Like an anti-racism gig is definitely, it's an important first step in a long process of dealing with discrimination in general.
That brought me to the show's organizers, Bronwyn Trim and Yaffa Elling, with some questions about the choices they made, the results of the gig, and what exactly is East Coast Against Racism, or simply E.A.R.
E.A.R. is East Coast Against Racism. It's us. And we kind of decided at the beginning of May that there was a problem in the city with neo-Nazis being here, and a problem just with covert and subvert racism, and we should put together a show and call it something and do something about racism. So we got sat down for hours trying to figure out a name, what we wanted to call it, and we wanted it to be more East Coast and try to get a lot of local bands together to stand up and say we're not going to take this and we're going to try to do something about our community.
Choosing for us as women to do something about racism instead of doing something, say, about like women's issues sort of gives us like, it's just sort of, racism affects everyone. It's something that doesn't just affect women or children. It affects men. It affects everyone. And it's more, I think it's more prevalent, and it's also more dangerous. Choosing to do an anti-racism show, I think we felt was more important.
I think sexism is an important issue, but sexism is not just a female thing. There's sexism amongst the gay community, lesbians against lesbians, gay men against gay men against men that are straight, and women against women that are straight, and there's all kinds of things going on there. But I think that Roman's right, that racism is far more dangerous and far more prevalent. And by being two women doing something about racism, I think that says something too for our gender.
Education, awareness, those were our two main goals for the show.
Unity.
And unity, yeah. As long as we can get through to maybe one person to let them know that this is a problem. Like, there's a lot of people who sort of know it exists but don't really feel that it's that big of a problem. And by doing this show, we're sort of letting them know that, you know, like, hey, we're not doing this for no reason. You know, we didn't spend all this time putting a show together for no reason. Like, there is a problem.
You know, just because somebody's not goose-stepping down the street with a big swastika on, doesn't mean that there's not racism. That there's black on black and white on white and Asian on Asian, and then there's all kinds of different mixes of that, of racism in our community. And a lot of it is subtle when you go to apply for a job. They might look at the color of your skin or your family last name and all kinds of things like that. And we wanted to bring that point across.
I don't think we were just preaching to the already converted people. Not necessarily everybody that went to the show is somebody who is, you know, definitely anti-racist. There's people out there who aren't quite sure where they stand sometimes, especially younger kids. There's so many outside forces out there. Also, like, we were using music to get across to people. So I think that there were some people that just might have shown up for the music, because we had a really good lineup of bands. And so hopefully those people that just came to see the music, we hopefully got a message across to them as well.
Like, all of us will make comments or jokes. We added some in our show about sexism and racism and homophobia, and all those things tie in together. And I think that a lot of people who were dead determined that they were not racist realize that, yes, we do have some biases, and maybe we should point out, you know.
Armed with my earplugs, this has been Catherine Stockhausen for the B-Side.